My guest for this episode is an investor in Tampa Bay who's made a name for himself out of being able to get the most impossible deals done, the ones that most people give up on. A lot of, especially wholesalers, they're looking at one exit strategy. Joey, he's probably got 15 or 20 different exit strategies, and we're going to get into that today. So my guest today is Joey Long. Welcome, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you. So let's give a quick background about how you got into real estate, because I know you got some pretty cool stories. So give a quick intro on how that all started.
Yeah, so very unorthodox way of getting into real estate. I was actually up at college on a sports scholarship in North Carolina, and 2 weeks into preseason, I had to come home and get an emergency surgery, broke my leg for the 7th time. And on that flight home, my mom actually came up to help me travel back. And on that flight home, she sat next to an old guy in first class while I was back in coach. And that guy invited me to some random real estate event at some random strip mall Chinese buffet in Pinellas Park.
No way.
And told me to go over and meet this guy named Pete. And Pete said, would love to talk to you, see if this is something you'd like. I have a class coming up. I was like, can't afford a class. Like, I don't know you. I have no money.
Right.
Like, he goes, can you afford a promise? What do you mean? Do you promise that you'll either take what I teach you and apply it, or you'll pay me when you can? I was like, sure, that sounds fair. And the class was like $500. So I took the class. I think 6 or 7 months later, I bought my first rental on Curative financing with owner financing. And I tried to pay him out of my first month's rent check, and he said, you already paid me, don't worry about it.
Wow.
And that's when I kind of realized, and I bought that house with, my down payment was my entire bank account, which the seller didn't realize until like 2 weeks before that was $732. And so when
Your
I realized...
down payment was $732?
I basically told the seller, I was like, I'll empty out my bank account as a down payment. He didn't ask how much at first. So
and it was 700.
Yeah, a couple weeks before closing, he's like, by the way, I never asked you how much is your down payment, because he just wanted to dump this thing. It was a duplex in Southside St. Pete before anybody bought in Southside St. Pete.
Sure.
And so I told him $732, and he's like, all right, well, let's do it. And yeah, so that's kind of what opened my eyes. I was like, wow, like you can do this, like this works. And it was, for me, it was actually, that was the first direct to seller offer that I ever made.
Really?
Yeah.
First offer and you got a house.
Yeah. So, and by the way, then it took me 9 months to get another one.
Okay.
But first offer, worst offer I've ever made, not for me, but for the seller, I guess. And yeah, just kind of opened my eyes to like, all right, I can do this. This works. And let's run with it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So obviously you're not, I know you do a little bit of wholesaling here and there, but you're primarily focused on the creative deals and stuff like that. What initially attracted you to like messy deals and creative stuff versus most of the people that are going to be listening to this are people that are just looking for wholesale deals, trying to make cash offers?
Yeah.
Was it just the way that you were introduced into real estate, the fact that it was kind of a creative focus, or how did that?
Yeah. So like, I'm going to go back to Pete Fortunato a lot. He always used to ask me, like when I first got into real estate, he's like, do you want to be the businessman or the investor? And I always wanted to be the investor, because what I saw from the guys that I learned from is, yes, they were 75 years old, and, some of them dressed, like bums, like drove bad cars, but like they were all very, very wealthy. And like they took care of their families. They had time to travel. They would, go meet up at McDonald's every morning and just have coffee, like not in a rush with their lives. So I was like, well, if that's what the life of being an investor looks like, sign me up. So, and I never really had the goal of like building a big business. So I did, especially after I emptied out my last $700, I was like, all right, I need some money.
Right, sure.
And so I did get into wholesaling, and I kind of, before like wholesaling was like big down here. I mean, I signed up for IDI, used to download, I think it was Earthplat or something like that I use. It was like $10 a month, download a big list from just a whole area, and I would just speed dial that whole list on ready mode. Probably 2018, 2019. Gotcha. So this was like, I mean, I used to call people and it was so easy. Like they didn't talk to anybody else. The market hadn't shot up yet. So like they weren't asking for $1 million.
What a different world.
Right, dude. It was just so easy. And that's kind of where I stopped liking wholesaling, when post-COVID, like everybody started moving here, like people like you, no offense.
Yeah, hey, I'm 100% part of that problem.
But you're also like, you are the businessman, and you're much better at it than I am. So when I had to start competing with everybody to, just get a lead, and then I called somebody and they're talking to 10 people I know, I just didn't like that, because like my niche was so unique that I never had that competition. Sure. So I wholesaled for a while. I still do it kind of infrequently,
yeah,
but
here and there.
It was just kind of like a path to get a little bit of money in my pocket before I could start flipping. And then I just realized like I didn't like the business model. I don't want to have a bunch of cold callers. I don't want to be talking to sellers all day, every day.
Yeah.
But there were a few deals in there that came up that it was just like people would tell me like, hey, I was under contract on this, and nobody could figure it out. There's this problem, there's that problem, and just nobody could get it done.
Sure.
And so like I always take that as a challenge. Like, all right, I'm going to be the guy that figures this out.
Okay.
And I just had fun with that. And so I got some pretty complex deals done. And that kind of led me into the route of like short sales options originally. And then now I'm doing more like curative. I'm strictly doing short sales and curative work now.
Okay.
And curative's where it gets really messy. But again, it was just, we were dialing for a while, and I would find an opportunity and there'd be a new problem that I had to solve. And once I figured that out, I was like, all right, well, there's a niche here and no one else was solving this. So like, let's just jump into that.
Okay, cool.
And so then I just kind of ran with the messy side that no one else wants to do.
I like it. And I definitely want to get into all of that. First, I do want to touch on the fact that you mentioned like the whole business versus investor side of things, because I tell everybody that wholesaling is amazing, but it's a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
You can't retire off of wholesaling.
Yeah.
You're only as good as your last deal. And I mean, once you scale, like I have 10 cold callers, 2 acquisitions agents, dispositions agents, all that sort of stuff. And we have to do $20,000-$30,000 a month in assignment fees just to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So it's a hamster wheel. You're only as good as your next deal, and you have to always keep stuff on the board. Versus the way to actually build wealth is to start taking down some of those deals and keeping them long term. A beautiful thing about wholesaling is that it allows you to build that capital and build the deal flow to where you can start doing that. But a lot of investors, and I mean, I even find myself sometimes just getting into the habit of assigning everything and having to remind myself, like, man, this isn't how you get wealthy. It might be able to put some money in your pocket right now and pay the bills, but I'm going to look at, I know that there's so many houses around Tampa Bay that when I'm 50, 60 years old, I'm going to look at and be like, man, I shouldn't wholesale that one, shouldn't wholesale that one. Like, if I would have kept all of these, how much better would it be? But I mean, it's different strategies, but also obviously wholesaling is something that you use wholesaling to eventually build that wealth. You just kind of seem to shortcut that a little bit and get to it faster than most people do.
Yes and no. I mean, the side that I'm on, it's not as much volume. So like, I don't do as many deals as most, business investors and stuff like that.
But you don't have to.
Exactly. I don't have the marketing expense. So like, I don't have to do a deal to stay afloat.
Sure.
And like, I mean, I grew a little bit of a marketing expense at one point, but I think my highest I ever got to was like $6,500 a month.
Okay.
And even then I was like, whoa, like this is stressful.
Sure.
But again, I never built out the team like you did. And with you, I mean, what you did is cool because you kind of transitioned from just wholesaling to building out, one call away and kind of building out that ladder. So you're kind of doing it differently than most people, I feel like. And I'm not going to lie, if I thought about that early on, I probably would have done something similar because that is a great cash conversion cycle.
Sure.
And while you do have to do deals to stay afloat, it's like you've systematized it so well that it's like that's not really a problem for you guys.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, it took years to get to this point, but it is now in a position where the work that I have to do personally is pretty leveraged, and now I'm more focused on just trying to build the ecosystem that can allow people to be successful in real estate. Like, they can come to me, they can get coaching, they can get virtual assistants. We're working in a CRM right now that we can have people, if they don't have a CRM and they don't want to have to start toying with it, they can just use ours. And it allows people to just find their way into real estate. But again, like at the end of the day, you want to wholesale so that you can. A lot of people that come into the one call away community, they're either in a job or they just got out of a job, and they're wanting to be able to build up their cash reserves so that they can either, like I said, leave their job or start investing in real estate and start building that wealth. So that's where wholesaling is so beautiful, is that it allows you to be able to start generating more cash than most businesses would allow you to do, at least legally. And then you can, like I said, deploy that into assets, and that's how you gain the long-term wealth. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. So why do you think most people give up on these? Like, we'll get into the curative title and all this sort of stuff. Why do you think most people just give up, and why do you think it gives you such an advantage?
I don't want to generalize when I say this, but I feel like most people in the real estate space right now actually know nothing about real estate. They know how to run a quick cash conversion cycle business. They know how to flip a house. And it was also that that time period of 2020 to 2023 where it was just like, I mean, you could buy a house and cut 2 blades of grass and sell it for $100,000 more. So it was like, there was a lot of easy money to make in real estate, but because I wasn't doing those models, like I wasn't doing those routes. So like I didn't capitalize as well as I probably could have on, you know, those years for wholesaling and flipping and all that. I did great with flips, but most of the time they were creative financing on the purchase. And I think where a lot of people want ease, I want longevity and consistency. So if I can avoid being the guy that, you know, runs up the big marketing expense to, you know, try to do all these deals just because that's not what I enjoy. I'd rather spend the time on the deals that nobody else wants to do and figure out the solution, because there's always going to be marketing companies. There's always going to be wholesalers, always going to be agents, always going to be other people doing the hard work for me that I can then just have them bring me their complex deals that they don't know how to do, and I can either help them solve it or I can, you know, do it for them. So
what do you think is the most, like, your most common complexity in a deal? What's the biggest problem that you're solving these days?
These days, kind of hard to answer. I would say probably short sale side of things, like liens and just underwater mortgages. But
explain for everybody what a short sale is real quick.
Basic definition: when a house is worth less than what they owe on the mortgage. So, for example, like one we have right now, they owe $287, not including the fees, and the house, we just got it appraised for like $124. So it was a hurricane damaged house, wood frame house. 3 trees fell on it during the storm, so it's pretty rough. Jared actually brought this deal to me. Okay. And
this is the one that you were talking about in my community?
Yeah.
Right.
So we're finally wrapping this one up.
Okay.
And or actually, no, there was another one that I was talking about in your community.
Okay.
I think I talked about this one too, but the one with like the big tree across the roof, that was actually one of my properties.
Oh wow. Okay.
But with short sales right now, it's kind of cool because we have so many routes that we can take with short sales. Like if we negotiate it down to a price that works for us, I mean, we can do a lot with that. We can, you know, buy it cash. We can flip it. We can double close on it. We can lease option it to somebody. We could wrap it to somebody. So like, there's a lot of creative exits you can take out of these things. There's not a whole lot of creative acquisition, but the exits can be really creative and lucrative. And right now it's just so prevalent because of the changes in the market. And also just one of our biggest, I guess, influx of leads right now is new construction that was never finished or flips that ran out of money.
Okay.
So we're kind of starting to see, like how I mentioned earlier, like all those investors that were making easy money for those few years.
Starting to get caught with their pants down.
They tried to keep doing that. And now, I mean, some investors that I never would have thought would have had that problem are coming to us for help.
Wow.
So,
okay. I was going to ask this later in the episode, but that's basically what it was what is the biggest problems that you're seeing in the markets right now? And you think it's new constructions and investors not being able to finish projects, huh?
And just, I mean, homeowners buying houses for too much.
Yeah.
And
people that bought like in 2022, 2023, and now they rolled into the closing costs, and they're zero down or negative equity, and now they're trying to sell and they can't. Yeah.
Well, and the big side of that a lot of people don't think about is like the payment that, because taxes and insurance went up so much, the payment that they're paying today, they never would have qualified for that high of a payment when they applied for their loan. So it's kind of like, you know, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place because it wasn't their fault. Sometimes it is, a lot of the time it is, but a lot of times it's not, and they just can't afford their payment anymore, or life happens, or now with all this stuff going on in the world, it's like credit cards are piling up, car payments are getting backed up, groceries are expensive, gas is $4.50 a gallon. So it's like, it's not just the real estate aspect, but the overall like life aspect that's starting to pour over into 100%. Real estate.
Yeah, we're seeing that. We're seeing that as well. I mean, I remember I went to, like last week, maybe the week before, I went to go see a seller that he was an investor himself. He owned a couple of rental properties, but he was like, man, I need to start getting rid of I can't put gas in my car. I can't put food on my table. Everything's gotten so expensive. I'm getting squeezed. None of these rentals are cash flowing.
Yep.
You see a lot of problems. And then, I mean, you mentioned taxes and insurance going way up. I mean, I had that happen on my primary residence in South Tampa. I bought it subject to in 2023 and did a renovation. And part of the deal was I took it over subject to. The sellers had a 3.25% interest rate, and they didn't need to buy a new house for a while, but they did say like, hey, in the next year or two, we're going to need to buy a new house, so we need to get that loan taken care of. It was a VA loan. They needed their VA entitlement back. And so the deal was that I would buy the house, I'd renovate it, and then when they were ready to go buy a new home, I would do a cash out refinance, which sucked because I went from like a 3.25% interest rate to like a 7% interest rate, but I was able to pull out all of my money from the renovations to make it almost like a free house. But then the following year, they after I refinance, they do an escrow analysis, and my mortgage payments go up from like, it was $4,000 a month to now like $5,200 a month.
Yeah.
Just because they underestimated what my escrow balance was supposed to be. So I was just thinking, I'm like, man, and this isn't like, it's not like I'm in $1 million house. Like it's a normal $500,000, $600,000 house. So I'm like, man, how are people handling this kind of stuff when a mortgage just jumps up $1,000 plus for something like taxes and insurance? So people are getting squeezed all over the place, man. So, okay. So when somebody comes to you and it's either a seller or maybe another wholesaler, and they say, hey, I'm having trouble with this lead. I can't make it work because there's no equity or because of a title issue or whatever it is. What are the things that immediately start going through your mind, and what are the first questions that you ask to kind of determine if it's something that you're going to be able to work with?
It depends. If it's a short sale, our first question is, are the sellers cooperative, and what condition is the house in?
Okay.
If the two biggest things are right there, because if it's a house that they just bought a year ago that they just happen to pay too much for and the market started teetering, I mean, there's not much we can do. The bank would rather do a deed in lieu. They'd rather do any other option besides a short sale. Mm-hmm. And there's not always an option for a short sale if we end up having to reduce it, $20,000, like just to get it sold on the market. It's like nobody wins from that. Like, yes, the sellers get to sell their house, but like the bank kind of loses unnecessary money, which not that we really care about that, but it's also selfishly it's a lot of work for us to not make a lot of money.
Yeah,
so it's
I've done a few short sales and they are not short
anything
at all.
But short. That's what I always say. Short sales are anything but short. Like the longest one I've had was 19 months. Mm-hmm. Granted, we made a ton of money on that one, but if we and when we just negotiate a house down just so like we can get it sold on the market or something, we have to charge a fee. We can't do it for free. So like our minimum fee these days is about $10,000 because there's so much work to do and the banks are so hard to deal with right now. So it just doesn't really make sense like a lot of the time to do just a minimal reduction with all that work just to get it on the market. Yeah. A lot of times we'll try to figure out something more creative to where we can still help out the sellers, but we don't have to necessarily go that whole route and take a hit on their credit for a $20,000 drop and all that. But when it comes to Curative, the first thing I ask is, have you built out a title profile? In Curative, we act as the title company, basically. Like we run a full title report. We look at any document that's going to give us any type of info. We do genealogy reports. We do, we look for obituaries. And then we look at the title and we say, all right, why is there a problem here? And how, is that problem solvable? And how do we solve it? Mm-hmm. And most people don't even know how to read a deed. Yeah. So that amazes me. Back to what I said earlier about like most people in the industry don't really know real estate. It's amazing how much info just a simple deed will tell you. Yeah. And usually you can find the problem just from that deed or just from a brief, 10-year look at the title chain. And if somebody brings us a deal that they haven't even done that yet, I'm like, all right, well, go find me this. And then if there's, X, Y, and Z factors, give me a call back. If there's not, let me know what you find. But if you don't even know how to find the problem, then, you got some work to do yourself.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Okay. So the definition of curative title is essentially just like there's an issue on the title report that needs to be taken care of. And
somewhat.
Yeah. Okay.
So
give us a definition then.
So I wouldn't say there's a definition. It's kind of like a grouping of issues. Yeah. But it could be anything from breaks in the title chain, fraudulent deeds that pass through, family disputes, heir disputes. Like one we're working right now, we're trying to buy 5/36 of a property from an heir, and we're going to have to do 4 probates with that. There's 3 other siblings involved, one of which has handwritten quitclaim deeds buying 4/9 of 1/3 of the house from their grandparents. My goodness. And then the family was all suing each other when one of them died and they had to go through probate. Wow. So like, you want a definition of curative, that's basically it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
And so it's like, it's these situations where like, we might have to hire a private investigator to find the right person to talk to. Sure. Or, we buy out partial interest in an estate at a certain, from certain people, and then kind of piece that together with the other heirs as we go. And quite frankly, that's why these days I am like terrified to buy from wholesalers, because I know wholesalers don't look at that. And so like me just seeing some of the craziness on some of these deals now, I'm like, how is wholesaling even a thing when you're not doing like a full title report on every property? But I mean, granted, it's 1 in 100 properties. Actually, probably more than that. But
pretty rare.
It's
but
rare that
some
there's
big
stuff
problems
like
to
this.
solve for sure.
Oh yeah.
So how, like, we talk about you need to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze on stuff like that. When you have something where you're talking with a seller, because I know on our side of things, because we talk to thousands of homeowners every week, and we run into stuff like that where it's people are suing each other, and there's a whole bunch of people that are in disagreement on what to do with the property and title issues and maybe liens and different things. And our question is always like, how many different decision makers are going to have to be in here, and is it worth our time to go through all of this and deal with all of this when we have the volume to just be able to pick off the ones that are, you know, tired landlords that own a property that's vacant. There's not a lot of title issues. We deal with stuff like that. But honestly, if I heard of a deal like that where there's people are buying partial interests of partial interests, I would probably tell my team, hey, unless everybody says we are on board and we want you to take this from us right now, we'd be like, hey, let's move on. Let's focus on something where
now you can send those to me and we can just JV on it.
Perfect. So how do you, like, if I'm talking with my team, or my team is talking to sellers and even the community, the guys in the One Call Away community, how could they know, like, how could they give a quick, what information would they need to give to you to know whether it's worth pursuing or not, versus like somebody where it's like, hey, this is going to be such a pain in the butt that it's probably not even something we want to do?
Well, I mean, that's how we look at every deal. It's probably such a pain in the butt, we probably shouldn't be doing this, but we're going to do it anyways.
Okay.
But the first thing that I would tell people to look at is the equity in the house and the overall situation. So like, if, let's say it's, 5 heirs, there's no probate done, there's liens on the house, there's a mortgage on the house. We don't really care what ARV is. We want to know what the as-is value. Like in Curative, ARV doesn't really exist.
Okay.
We want to know what the as-is value is, and from that as-is value, do we have about $100,000 in equity right there?
Okay.
And that's after all the liens that are owed, after the probate costs, after any.
So you're meaning whatever the house is worth in its as-is value, if you can get to the seller's net of all fees, if you have a $100,000 spread, that's like your sniff test on this is at least worth digging into.
Exactly. Okay. Because then we know if we've already done we've already paid the probate fees, if we have to clear out liens, like if we have to demolish a property to get the liens cleared, if we're going to have to buy out all the different heirs or, the current homeowners or title holders, we want to know that, all right, with this equity spread, if anything comes up that we missed, are we going to be able to take care of it and still make money?
Sure.
So that's kind of our buffer. And if that fits, then for us, it's worth looking into.
Okay.
Usually we're basically trying to buy partial interest from different heirs and then run the probate on their behalf. And the challenging part with that is finding the people and then knowing how to put the genealogy report together to figure out who you need to talk to that's a decision maker and that can actually sell you the interest.
Okay.
When it comes to liens and stuff, like, you know how to deal with liens. I mean, you basically talk to the city and you figure out what needs to be done. Sure. But the thing with Curative is usually it's not just like one issue, that's usually like multiple issues stacked up. So that's why that equity threshold is so important, because if we're going to do all this work and we're going to take all this risk, then we need to have that buffer in case anything else comes up, in case another one of the heirs, maybe an heir comes out of the woodwork and they claim that they have interest in this property and they try to sue us, right?
Sure. Okay.
We have to be able to afford to fight that, or if we can't get somebody to agree to sell to us, we have to be able to afford to hire a lawyer for a partition sale.
Okay.
So it's all these different.
You just got to bake in a huge buffer for what ifs, because you are taking out a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
And honestly, in those kind of situations, in those deals where we're dealing with because one thing that we'll try to do is if it's a homeowner that's maybe they're in disagreement with another person on what to do with the house, or maybe I'm trying to think, we're talking with one right now that it's like they own 60% of the property, but the 40% is refusing to sell. And usually what we try to do with those people is we just try to buy out their interest, like with a quick claim deed, just very, very cheap. And what we tell them is like, hey, we're not buying the house. We're buying your place in this problem.
We're buying the problem.
Because obviously they're, you know, if when you offer them, let's say it's a $400,000 house and you offer them $10,000 or $20,000 for the quick claim deed, they're like, the house is worth way more than that. Are you kidding me? It's like, I'm not buying the house. I'm buying your place in a lawsuit.
Exactly.
So
taking all your fees.
Exactly. So it's like, hey, if you want me to buy the house, then you deal with the issues. You go through this.
I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, I'll help you. We'll put you in touch with the attorneys, but like at the end of the day, you have to go through this.
Yep.
Or if you just want to wipe your hands clean of it and be done with it, then we'll take on your problem. But again, we're buying the problem. We're not buying the house.
Exactly.
We buy the problem with the hopes of one day getting the house.
Exactly.
But there's a whole lot of things that have to go right before that actually happens.
Yep. And that was a good point too. I mean, when we're doing this, we're usually buying for like 1 to 10 cents on the dollar from these
super
people.
cheap.
Because we're not buying the house. It's not like we're buying this house that, you know, you can go over there and move a bed in and jump in the pool. It's like these are forgotten houses that like you see the horror posts online about people walking through just these, you know, dungeon looking houses. Like these are them. Yeah. So we're not only taking on the problems, but we're also, you know, there's work that needs to be done, which typically, depending on the house, we don't usually do that. We'll just, you know, clean it out and list it as is. But depending on the house, I mean, we can keep it as a rental. We can kind of do whatever with it. So that's why I like Curative, because it gives you a cheap enough entry into whatever exit you want.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, obviously, if you're offering 1 to 10 cents on the dollar, you know, especially in a place like we're both in Tampa Bay, a lot of sellers think they're sitting on gold.
Yeah.
There's a very big phenomenon here, especially because over the last handful of years, sellers could get whatever they wanted up until about midway through 2022, and things started shifting. And I feel like there's more sellers that are starting to understand that that's past, but we still deal with a lot of sellers that they'll reference their neighbor that sold in 2022 or 2021, and they're not paying attention to the recent comps.
Or one realtor told them that it's worth $500,000.
Yeah, or they're going off of a Zillow like cash offer thing and thinking that that's the market value for a cash investor.
Yep.
So with that, you have a lot of let's say unrealistic expectations. Do you think when you're dealing with these kind of homeowners where you're having to offer them 1 to 10 cents on the dollar to solve their problem, do you think it's more important to be, and I think I know your answer to this, but I'm interested to hear your take on it, is it more important to be creative or patient?
It's a good question. I think a mix of both, and it really depends on the situation. If they already hold title and there's issues going on, then most of the time that's patience. Because if, like, for example, we're dealing with someone right now that is, they claim to be super motivated to sell. They own 50% with their sister. They already inherited it. They already have the title. Yeah. It's probably 5 minutes from the beach, but it is in a flood zone and it did flood. And they think the house is worth $250,000 or $500,000. They're in partition, and he sued her for partition sale. She's making his life a nightmare, and he's like, "Oh, I just want to walk away from this house. I want, nothing to do with it. I'm so over it. I'm so done with my sister. If you want to buy out my interest, I'll take $250,000." I'm like, bro, like, all right, come on. If you're already in partition and you told us your sister's making your life hell, why are we going to give you market value to step into your headache?
Right.
Like, you're not selling me on this. So with situations like that, like, patience for sure, because I don't care how good you are at creative real estate. There's nothing you can do there to make that make sense.
Right.
When it comes to situations with like multiple heirs involved where probate hasn't been done, they haven't had title transfer yet, like that gets more into the creative side, because there's so many ways you can get that done, but patience isn't always an option, because maybe, the parent passed away and they haven't paid taxes for the last 3 years. Maybe it's going to tax deed sale. Maybe there's a mortgage foreclosure. Maybe there's an HOA foreclosure. Another one we're working on right now, there's a house in Palm Harbor. They're getting foreclosed on over a $400 annual HOA payment.
No way.
The house is free and clear. It is probably a $600,000 pool home, and they're getting foreclosed on over $400.
They're going to lose it over $400.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this is one of those where no heirs can be found. The reason they haven't foreclosed yet is because even the bank or the HOA community has hired private investigators, can't find anybody. Wow. I have the people I need to talk to. I just can't get them to answer my phone or answer the call. So with that, like, there's a deadline there. So we have to get a little bit creative rather than patient. But we also, we can't force this problem on them because it's not necessarily their problem. It's kind of just, at this point for them, it's like, hey, either I could give you a little bit of money, or this house is going to get foreclosed on, you'll get nothing. Right. Or if you want to save it, like you said earlier, you can do it. I'll show you how, but you're going to have to pay to fix it. If you want to take, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, then great, I'm happy to step in and do it all for you, but you have to understand why my offer is that cheap, because of the risk that I'm taking on. That usually is pretty understandable for them because they have avoided the problem most of the time. It's either they've avoided it completely because they didn't know how to deal with it, or it's just totally forgotten about.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And I know one thing that I appreciate about you, and the things that you like when I come to your meetups and I hear you talking about your strategy, a lot of the time you're telling these sellers, like, hey, go try everybody else. Yeah. Like, go see if you can figure something else out. And then if you can't, give me a call. And we kind of do the same thing from, like, on the cash offer wholesaling side of things, because we talk to so many sellers. I mean, we'll get 50, 60 cold call leads a week. So we're having to qualify a lot of sellers. And a lot of the time it's people that have unrealistic expectations. They're like, oh, I got this person offering me this and this and this. And we're like, hey, go take that. Like,
go take it.
If you feel good about that, please take it. But
when you don't close in 3 months, my offer is going to be 20 grand lower.
Exactly. And we tell the sellers the same thing. Hey, if you feel good about it, please take that. But we buy a house or two every month from somebody that we offered on 2 months prior. And then they go take an offer higher than ours, and they get into a bad contract, and they get their time wasted, and they come back to us a month, 2 months later, and now they're in a time crunch, and now we have to offer less because we have to close quicker. And so I kind of I try to put them in like one of two boxes, and I say, hey, are you somebody that you need to get this done right the first time, or are you okay with having your time wasted and maybe having to take 2 or 3 different offers before you actually get this house sold? And a non-motivated seller will say, I don't care, I'll take every until I can hold on to this house for forever if I need to. I don't need to sell it. Versus somebody else, like I remember we did a deal in West Tampa in the fall of last year that we made a $70,000 assignment fee off of. When I told the seller this, it was like that moment immediately got me the deal because he was super, super motivated. He lived out of town, 2 hours up north. He had $250,000 worth of code violations against the property.
I remember this one.
Yeah, and he was about to have the property like repossessed by the city, whatever. They were about to demolish it. It was about to be on the demo list. So he was like really, really needing to get going. And I hit him with that question because he was like, "Yeah, I'm coming out. I'm coming down to town tomorrow. I'm gonna meet 5 or 6 different investors there between 9 and 12. Like, when can you be there?" And I was like, "Hey, I'd be happy to make you an offer. I'm not really one for bidding wars, and here's why. Because you're going to get people that'll tell you whatever you want to hear to get you under contract, and then they're going to try to change the terms on you later, a week before closing. They're going to hit you with a big price reduction, and they a lot of the time are going to count on you being emotionally invested into the deal to where you don't want to cancel and retry with somebody else, so that you regretfully take this price cut." And I actually a lot of the time I bring up a specific story from, this was probably 2 years ago now, where we dealt with this sweet old lady in Pinellas Park that she took an offer $25,000 higher. She didn't, and we tried to like educate her on, hey, here's some things to look for in the agreement, like, here's some things to maybe ask to make sure that they're, because she was like, she was one of those sellers that like needed every penny that she could get. Yeah. And we really offered her as much as we thought that we could, but then somebody else was like 15, 20K higher. And she's like, hey, look, I really like you guys, but I have to try it. I have to take this, right? And so like a month and a half goes by, and she was wanting to move up to North Carolina to be with her family. She was getting older. Health was starting to become a pretty big problem for her, so she wanted to be closer to the family. And she wakes up on closing day. She's got the U-Haul in the driveway. She's got nothing but her air mattress and her cell phone plugged into the wall, so that she can wake up and sign closing documents and just get in the U-Haul and go home. And she wakes up in the morning to just a cancellation email from the wholesaler. Yep. Like, just no explanation, no, hey, we need to be at this price, just, hey, here's a cancellation signed. And so, of course, she was like, devastated. And so I tell that story to sellers because it kind of frames it like, they're like, well, I don't want that to happen to me. Exactly. So if it's an actually motivated seller, they're going to realize that, and then if they were thinking before that price was more important to them than certainty, that might push them over to the other side. And it did with the seller, because he went from wanting to talk to 4 or 5 different investors to just being like, what can you pay me? I just need to get this done.
Yeah.
And we ended up making a really good fee on it. So I think that's really good. Would you say the majority of the people that you work with have exhausted every option that they can exhaust?
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least any option worth exploring.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ones that frustrates me the most is agents that do exactly what you were just talking about, because I would almost personally, I'd rather have a wholesaler lowball me than an agent promise me, don't listen to these investors. Your house will sell for $500,000 on the market in a second, right? They make money based off how much they sell the house for.
Right.
So, of course, they're going to tell you a higher price. Like, yes, we make money off how cheap can we get the house for, but like, we're not. I mean, a lot of wholesalers are stupid, but like, you guys don't come in and offer 20 cents on the dollar for a house that doesn't need that offer.
Right.
You guys offer like an actual feasible offer that like makes sense with the condition of the house.
Right.
And I would so much rather personally have that happen to me and sell my house for a little bit of a discount, like willingly, than to end up waiting 6, 7, 8 months on the market. And so like, that's when it really frustrates me. And that's when they're kind of stuck because of that agent contract. When it comes to somebody that had an investor, 1 or 2 investors or wholesalers try to solve something and they couldn't solve it, I would say it's 50-50 between like, all right, you've tried all your options. Let's take a step back and reevaluate. Other times I'm like, hey, here's this person, here's this person, here's this person. Go call all my friends, see if any of my friends can help you. And if not, if they can, great, awesome. I hope they can. If not, give me a call back and we'll be here.
Yeah.
And I'll also add in, like, there are very few, if you can't tell, I'm not the biggest fan of wholesalers. There are very few.
I don't blame you, man. Most wholesalers suck, and yeah.
Well, but there are very few that I actually like, and like, you are one of them. So like, when people come into the area and they're like, I get texts all the time of like, hey, I'm just moving down here, I'm getting into real estate, what advice can you give me? And I will tell people like, hey, if you're just trying to pick up fix and flips, like, here's Nick's number. Call him, talk to him and his team. Like, they're one of the few wholesale companies I trust, because like, you think about all the options. Like you said earlier, like, you guys will make partial interest offers to solve a problem, and you know that you're coming in to take care of that headache rather than the house.
Right.
You'll make, subject to offers. You'll tell people, hey, go talk to everybody else. You won't just lie to people to lock up a contract. So like, those are the wholesalers I appreciate, rather than the ones that cause the problems that bring me the deals.
Yeah.
They don't bring me the deals, but the ones that cause the problems
Right.
that in turn get me to be the one to solve the problems.
100%. Yeah, and like I said, I agree with your sentiment that most wholesalers suck. And a good wholesaler is, they're going to know above all else who they serve.
Yep.
And so if you're a wholesaler and you're out making offers on properties that are freshly listed on the market, or they're new construction homes, or there's just no problems there whatsoever, then you're not really adding any value.
Yeah.
And a lot of wholesalers they'll go to homeowners that, maybe they're willing to give a little bit of a discount, but nowhere near where it actually needs to be for a wholesale price. And then they'll just put it under contract, just hoping to make something work, just throwing stuff against the wall. Whereas a wholesaler, I always say that a knowledgeable and ethical wholesaler is a huge asset to the marketplace.
100%.
But a uneducated or an unethical wholesaler is like a cancer to the marketplace.
Well, and you say it all the time, like, your target is 3 to 4% of the real estate market.
Yeah, it's very small.
And like, people identifying that's what's going to make you a good wholesaler, rather than the guy that, like you said, goes and tries to lowball these people that don't have that problem. And it's the same thing for us. Realistically, our target audience is probably 1% of the real estate market.
Yeah, even smaller.
But because we know that and identify that, we know how to solve those problems, and we know how to approach it the right way, rather than just trying to force these, unrealistic options on people that don't really need our help.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's something that I always try to make sure that I stress to the guys in the One Call Away community, is that one of the most important skills that you can have as a wholesaler, above like communication, well, I would actually not above communication, but along with communication and ethics, is the ability to disqualify leads.
Yep.
Qualify and disqualify leads. Because if you're spending all of your time with bad leads, people that are unmotivated, people that, again, maybe they have the house on the market or they're getting ready to put it on the market, not only are you wasting your own time, but you're wasting their time. You're maybe giving lowball offers to people that have no business getting lowball offers, and then that's part of why wholesaling has its bad reputation.
Exactly.
It's because you have an agent that lists a house on the market that has no reason for a wholesaler to be calling it, but then you have so many different people sending automated wholesale offers or calling them with virtual assistants to try to qualify this property, that there's no reason why the seller would ever take an offer at 50 or 60 cents on the dollar.
Yep.
So yeah, a good wholesaler needs to understand who they're serving and why they're serving them, and focus on those people, and frankly not bother everybody else.
Exactly. Because those people, like, there's actually, you can help them. Like,
Right.
and because my career started with somebody making me a promise, a promise is my most valuable form of currency in this business.
Yeah.
And if I do make that promise to somebody, I have to be 100%. That's also why I did not like wholesaling myself, because I think my wholesale career, I want to say I canceled like 6 contracts. And that's a very low number for anybody that doesn't know. Like, that is a very low number for wholesaling. But the reason for that was because I made that promise to somebody that I am the guy to help you. I can be the guy to help you. And when I can't be that guy and I did have to cancel, dude, I would get like nauseous. I'd get like sick to my stomach. I just hated that feeling. So now what I like about what I'm doing, and even like what you guys do, is like when you make that promise, that promise isn't going to change. Like, that promise, you make that a realistic promise from day one, and you're the one that follows through with that. And to me, that's the most important part of real estate, because while our audience is so small for our target audience, those people, like, they need help.
Yeah.
And when we can be the person that helps them, like, every single time I've done a deal, someone's appreciative.
Yeah. And that helps you sleep better at night. Makes 100%. You proud of the work that you're doing. Absolutely. Yeah. I look at some of these other wholesale operations where it's like, they'll brag about locking up 20 contracts in a month, 25 contracts in a month.
Close 3 of them.
But they close 3 to 5 of them. And it's like, you're just, not only are you wasting your own time, your salespeople are going to get demotivated because they get the adrenaline or the dopamine shot of getting a contract just to have it canceled. And they realize that they spent all that time for nothing, right?
Yep.
So you're wasting so much time and you're burning your reputation. You're not serving anybody. But unfortunately, that's kind of there's like a pressure in the business to be doing a bunch of contracts and to be talking about these top line numbers. Everybody wants to talk about top line revenue and contracts signed, and not profit and deals closed. And I think, unfortunately, that's kind of what gives us the reputation that we have. And I mean, there's times that we have to cancel contracts as well. But what we do is, if we're not like, we lock up a lot of deals where it's like, I know I could sell this with a text message to a friend. So I can, in that situation, basically promise the seller, like, hey, this is a done deal. You're good to go. Pack the U-Haul. You're good. Because we make offers that we can stand behind. That a lot of the time, I'd be willing to personally buy myself if I had to. But there are times that we do lock up deals a little bit higher. The sellers may be motivated, but there's some reason why they like can't take our offer. They really want to work with us. They don't want to work with other people, but they can't take the offer that we like are really confident in. We'll still lock it up, but we very much set expectations.
And you tell them that.
We tell the seller, hey, this is higher than we really want to be. We think there's a chance that we can make it work, but we're definitely going to have to do our due diligence. We're definitely going to have to get our team into the property. But if you're okay with giving us a week or two, then we'd be willing to sign it up at that price.
Exactly.
Right?
You and I have talked about that before. Like, hey, I know you don't want to go on the market. I know you don't want to pay these agent fees and spend all this time on market where this, we're 10, 20 grand off. If you're okay with it, we will try to get this sold for you. And notice how I said, get this sold for you. It's not like, hey, we're going to try to be the buyers on it. Like, we're going to try to keep our promise, but if we can't, are you okay with that? And if they say yes, like that's when I would do that too. If I wasn't confident in the price, like, I'd have that conversation with them just to set the expectation that could not be misinterpreted.
Exactly. And and honestly, like, sometimes we'll phrase it like, hey, because most of our competition are not having that conversation.
Yeah.
Most of our competition is making it sound like, oh, it's a done deal. We are the buyer. We're paying cash. We're doing this and that.
Just got to have my contractors come through.
Yeah, I just got to get my contractor through. And then the contractor shows up in a Tesla and it's like, this is not a contractor.
Or you have 6 different ones walk through.
Right, exactly. So, but when you're having that conversation with the homeowner, I'm almost framing it like, hey, unless you deal, actually, this is something that we say a lot of the time to sellers. We say, hey, if you're able to find somebody that's willing to put up a $5,000 to $10,000 deposit with no inspection period, congratulations, you found an end buyer. You should take that offer.
Yeah.
But if they're not willing to do that, most likely they're a wholesaler. And if they're not willing to do that and they're a wholesaler and they're not being upfront about it, like, I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you're going to deal with a wholesaler, you might as well deal with somebody like us because we're going to be honest, we're transparent, and frankly, like, look at all of our reviews. We like to leverage we got 50 plus 5-star reviews from sellers. Most wholesalers don't have that kind of stuff. So we're like, hey, you're going to probably deal with a wholesaler either way unless you find somebody that's willing to just put up a deposit, go no inspection period. So if you're going to go that route, you might as well work with somebody that's telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that gets us deals.
I would tell people something similar. Like when we would make that agreement, like, hey, we're too high, but I'm going to try to do this for you. I would tell them like, hey, if you get somebody that makes you an offer that you're happy with, let me look at the contract. If we feel like it's an end buyer, I will cancel my contract and you go sign that all day. I'll recommend you do it.
Yep.
But if you get anybody where their contract looks like this one that we just put together, they're going to be trying to do exactly what I'm doing for a higher price. So don't do that.
Transparency and honesty, man. It's funny. It's so funny to me. Like I'm probably close to 300 deals in now at this point, 300 closed deals. And I've always said, like, it just shocks me how so many people lie about so many different things. It's like deals would just be so much easier if people were just transparent and honest about what happened.
Yep.
And I think that's why 27 Properties has been able to have the reputation that it's had.
Yeah, people do business with people they like.
Right, and so buyers know that they can deal with us, and we're going to shoot them straight. We're not going to try to sell them something that we're not trying to represent what the property is. We try to give them every opportunity to go do their due diligence, and we communicate. We're transparent. If problems come up on the seller side, we communicate that, and vice versa. Whereas there's a lot of, especially wholesalers, they will conceal and hide problems until it's impossible for them not to.
Yep.
And usually at that point, it's too late. Like we were dealing with last week, we had a community member that was closing a deal. And he was working with another wholesaler that brought the buyer. And funding was late by first it was a day, then it became, they were supposed to fund in the morning, then in the afternoon, and then in the evening. And so it's like, and it ended up working out, but it just reminded me that there's so many wholesalers, because I've been through that so many times, where it's like they'll act like things are okay. And it's wholesalers primarily, but I mean buyers, realtors, everybody in the bit. Unfortunately, just in the industry, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors on a lot of it. So it's like there will be people that the deal could be falling apart, and they'll make it sound like everything is good because they want to try to keep the deal intact, and they don't tell you, especially as like a direct to seller wholesaler, if you're trying to have somebody else bring the buyer or sell your deal or whatever, you're JVing with somebody. There's so many times where I've noticed that people will act like everything is okay until they absolutely can't hide the fact that it's not anymore.
Yep.
And then usually by then it's too late to actually fix the problem. So
and sellers pick up on that.
Right, exactly. And a lot of people don't understand if you're the direct to seller wholesaler and then you're having somebody else sell your deal for them, that seller doesn't know about all of this. All they know is that they're dealing with you.
Yep.
And so anything that happens on the back end of the transaction, it hurts the A to B wholesaler's reputation and trust with that seller. And so that's why we're very, very particular about it. I mean, we've been able to build out a really good disposition system to where we sell deals to a lot of new buyers. But we have a pretty strict vetting process on that, like making sure before we choose to work with a buyer on a deal, like they understand the situation, they understand what's going on with the properties or with the seller, because they know, like, hey, if you mess up, that's going to really hurt our reputation. Yeah. And so that's why in some situations we're not afraid to keep a $5,000-$10,000 deposit from a buyer if they act in negligence and they hurt our reputation. Yep. So, yeah, man, just honesty and transparency. It gets deals done.
100%. Like I said, people do business with people they like, and I have had it where people will give up a higher offer to work with us just because they trusted us and liked us more.
No doubt. Happens all the time. That's when you find the right people that are truly motivated and you communicate from a place of certainty and confidence.
And I think, like, because I've seen your reviews before, and I think, like, when people leave a review and, like, name you specifically, like, that speaks more volumes than, like, oh yeah, sold my house with 27 property group and great experience. But when they leave you a paragraph long review that's like, Nick promised me this, Nick kept his word, Nick went out of his way for me, Nick, was fully transparent. Like, that's where those reviews compound, and that's where, like, people will go tell their friends about that. And that's how my reviews are a lot of the time too, and, like, I take pride in that. And absolutely. I will literally tell people, I'm like, look, you did not have to do that, but, like, I appreciate it. But if you know of anyone else.
Exactly. Well, look, stuff like that is why people like you and I will be around 10 years from now.
Exactly.
When there's a lot of people, like, I don't know what the statistic is, but I'm sure the average wholesaler's lifespan is not more than a couple of years.
Oh, I mean, dude, so many have gotten wiped out in the last few years. And I mean, now it's not the, the bottom of the totem pole entry into real estate anymore. Like, you have to have money to succeed. So it's a higher barrier to entry now, which I think is good and bad, because it's good because there's not going to be as many, like, just total newbies coming in and trying to do it. But I do think it's bad because that does give ability for a lot of the bigger companies to kind of, like, take over spaces.
It becomes a pay-to-play game.
Exactly. Yeah. But, I mean, I think wholesaling has a lot of value to it. I do think it's going to get a little bit more regulated. But, like, if you do it right, it's not, you're never
I'm not worried about regulation. I welcome
Exactly.
regulation. I think if regulation came to Florida, it'd help my business tremendously.
Dude, I say the same thing. Like, when TCPA came down to Florida, and it was like, you had to have all these different, like, the 10 DLC disclosures and all these new different, like, marketing rules. I was like, this is freaking awesome. Yeah. Like, we've done this anyways, but now it's like, you have to follow these rules, or, like, shit, I'll report you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, cool. So talking about messy deals, what do you have? I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but, like, what's the craziest or messiest deal that you've done?
That's a tough one.
I was gonna say you probably have a lot of them. It's hard to narrow down.
I'll give two examples. There's one recent Curative deal that I did, and then one short sale deal that I like to use as an example. So the Curative one was pretty recent. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. There were two sides to a family. We'll call them John and Jane, right? Brother and sister. John owned a house actually in my neighborhood and granted a life estate to his sister. Well, his sister died a month later. He lived 10 more years. His whole side of the family was like, it was big. Like, he had like 5 kids. He had, a couple other siblings that had passed away. Like,
not to derail you, but can you define life estate real quick?
Yeah. So basically, like, when somebody, like, if I grant you a life estate, basically, like, if I pass away, my house goes to you for the remainder of your life. If I, let's say I don't live in the house, like, I grant you a life estate, like, you have full rights to live in that house, to do whatever with that house, but you can't sell it.
You can just use it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You have, like, basically living rights to it.
Gotcha.
Unless I die and never revoke that, then when I die, and if I granted you that life estate, you will get title and you'll have full control.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what threw this one off is John granted Jane a enhanced life estate and never revoked it once she passed away a month later. Okay. So then John died about 10 years later in 2024, and then Jane got title to the house, but Jane was already dead. And there was no probate done. There was, like, no knowledge of it transferring to her. So this house was just sitting vacant. And John's side of the family, his cousin actually opened probate and took it all the way through probate court. And then at the end, the judge basically said, like, can't finish it. We have to dismiss this. We probated the wrong person, and we can't find the right person. Turned out that the sister was estranged from the rest of the family. She had she'd been married 4 times. She had 5 kids, each, most of them, like, spread out between the marriages. Sure. One of those kids had passed away. 2 of them were were stepchildren. And this lady had like 6 aliases. She had names from all the marriages, but then she also went, like, she would go on court or legal documents, she'd like go by her middle name with her first name as the middle name, or like just a totally made up name. So we couldn't find her. Once I found her correct alias just through, I mean, random searching, and found some random death certificate tied to like some post office notice, if I remember correctly.
Wow. Some detective work there.
Dude, that's literally, I mean, that's all we do at this point. And it's like, that's cool. We literally act as like title detectives. I found her most recent husband, who she married like a year before she passed away. And again, this is like 10 years later at this point. So it's kind of a very touchy subject. Then I found her 2 blood kids that were still alive. One of those siblings had passed away, so I didn't have to worry about it. It just got wrapped around to the other, to the living kids. I called the kids. I called her ex-husband, or her husband when she passed, and couldn't get a hold of anybody. Wrote them handwritten letters. When the daughter finally called me, she had the brother call me. His name was Phil, and ironically, he's actually an investor in Tennessee that. Very, very successful guy, awesome guy, built great rapport with him. And she had him call me and was like, hey, my sister and I keep getting these letters from you. We thought it was a scam at first, but the daughter's name was Michelle, and it was spelled very uniquely.
Okay.
And he was like, but man, you spelled my sister's name correctly on all the letters, so like we figured this had to be like something kind of real. Who are you?
Wow.
And I was like, man, I'm just a guy that lives like 10 houses away from this property that your mom actually owned. I'm not sure if you guys knew about that. I'm not sure if I'm talking to the right person, but if I am, I'd love to buy this house from you. I'm happy to pay for the probate. I didn't spill all, like, I'll pay for the probate, I'll do this and that. It was just kind of figuring out the situation. And it turned into, like, they had no idea that house even existed.
Wow.
They knew of their uncle, had no idea that he gave a life estate to their mom.
Okay.
The mom didn't live down there. They had never been to Florida. They'd never heard of the house. And so when I was like, yeah, I'd love to buy it from you, they were thrilled.
Wow.
And so I couldn't get the husband of their mom to answer me. So originally I bought out, and he had 50% of the house, and then the 50% was split between the son and daughter.
Sure.
So I originally had a contract to buy 50% of this house, which, I know I said we don't care about ARV, but after this thing's fixed up, I mean, this is a $480,000 house. I was under contract to buy half the house for $40,000. And then literally as I was on the phone with them filling out the contract, I get a call from their stepfather.
No way.
And he's like, backtrack for a sec. Like they were not friendly. They hated each other.
Sure.
The kids thought that, he took advantage of their mom and ended up being the one that caused her to die. He thought that, they didn't take care of their mom. They're the worst children ever. Just a lot of tension.
Sure.
And, I finally got the guy to answer, and then he was like, yeah, I'd love to sell. I didn't know she owned that house. I knew that, like, she had something to do with it. Didn't know it was hers. Would love to sell. Super nice guy. Ended up having to play mediator for family members that hadn't spoken in over a year because they each thought that they killed their family member. Like, just so much animosity. And I worked out well. I still got a great discount on the property, but I would have liked to have bought that
Sure.
for $40,000 for 50%. But then we had to take it through probate. We ended up having some issues with the closing. And again, like back to what you were saying, we told them about the issues that came up. They were perfectly fine with it. We didn't sugarcoat anything. We didn't lie. And we got the deal done. And that one it wasn't one of the most complicated, but it was one of the most unique because it was back to what I was saying about like people not reading deeds. All we had to do was read that deed. And most people don't even know what a deed actually is. And so like our answers were in that deed and the previous deeds that they had signed because that showed us that title transfer. And when we were able to find that one person, when we were able to find Jane, the rest of it kind of came pretty easy. And all we had to do was piece the parts together and get it done and solve that problem. And everyone's thrilled. The guy out in Tennessee, he basically offered to me, he's like, man, appreciate the help. Like we became good friends. And he's like, yeah, once I finish up, building my new house, if you ever need money, give me a call. It's like the rapport that we built.
That's amazing.
Now he's offering to be a lender
investor.
for me.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
dude. What's so we talked about deeds a lot, and you said that a lot of people don't even know what a deed is, and I agree. What is a deed for everybody that's listening? And then you have like a simple example of like what you're like something that you mentioned that a lot of problems can be solved just by simply reading the deed. Give me an example of first define what a deed is, and then what's an example of like what you'd be looking for on a deed.
Well, deed is like when you buy a house, like you get that deed. It's that's what shows the ownership of the house. Ownership. Yeah. So, like, I'll do two easy examples. Survivorship language in a deed, huge. Most people don't even know what that is. So, if there's like in the state of Florida, the way it works is if a husband and wife own a house, but it's just like, John and Jane together own this house in full, fee simple. If one of them die and it doesn't state husband and wife on there or specific survivorship language, probate has to happen.
Okay.
If you know what to look at on a deed, you can kind of set a plan for your approach. Like if it says husband and wife, no probate's needed. If one of them dies, transfers to the other. With rights of survivorship, transfers to the other. If
those same people, if it was a husband and wife, but they don't put as husband and wife,
or survivorship language, if it's just their names, doesn't transfer. It has to go through probate.
All right.
If two people own a house like that aren't married, I'm sure you've seen tenants in common quite often.
Yep.
Needs probate if one of them die. If you have rights of survivorship or survivorship language in there, doesn't need probate. So like you kind of know how to approach it. And when you're looking at the title chain for some of these curative deals, you have to go back and read those deeds and see what is going on there. The other thing about deeds is like if somebody bought that property subject to anything, and by the way, like I know you know this, but just for the audience, I'll clarify, like subject to doesn't just mean you're taking over a mortgage. Subject to means any encumbrance on that property that you are taking subject to. That could be liens, that could be judgments, that could be probate, that could be mortgages. So let's say
we sold a wholesale deal subject to the solar panel lien before.
Yeah, exactly. And so if somebody takes over, if somebody doesn't read that deed, somebody could have bought that house subject to. There could still be debt tied to that's still in somebody else's name. If you search that owner's name, you're not going to find that debt. I have people that ran into that at buying from auctions before, where there was a second mortgage that came up after they bought it that they had no idea about, that they only found when they tried to resell the property. Well, if you go and you look at those deeds, you can find all of that. You can see, all right, is there another deed tied to it? Is it subject to another, form of financing? Is it subject to solar panels? Like,
yeah, sure. Okay.
So you can find a lot of answers on those deeds, but you can also find the chain of title through those deeds of who was the first one to buy it, how was it transferred to the next, and that whole domino effect. Because quitclaim deeds, I mean, anybody can do them. There's no title search. You can literally handwrite them. So there's some sketchy stuff there. So a lot of times, I mean, we're going back 20, 30 years and finding breaks in the title chain that can only be solved with a quiet title action.
I remember one time we dealt with a seller that it was like a fraudulent quitclaim deed situation, and the legal description on the deed, they put the Zillow property descriptions, like where it's supposed to be the legal description as per the county website. It was saying like 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, like 1979 built on the deed. So
that's actually a great example, because if you don't have the legal description that is on the prior deeds on your deed, then you technically have a faulty deed.
Right.
And most of the time people just go to the appraiser site and they copy and paste the first one that they see on there, and that's always an abbreviation. And if you don't have everything matching the prior deeds, that could technically be seen as needing a corrective deed if you go to resell that property.
Yeah. Man.
So
lots of good stuff, man.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff that, like, on the actual legal documents that people just trust title companies too much to do for them.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen title companies miss plenty of stuff.
We just had one where we found 2 fraudulent handwritten quitclaim deeds that did not show up on a title insurance or a title commitment.
Wow. Yeah. That's
and
crazy.
We knew about it ahead of time because we know what to look for.
Yeah, man. Well, that's a lot of good info. I know we both got to get out of here, so I want to be respectful of your time. What's if you could go back, or I guess not go back, but if you could talk to somebody right now that was in the position that you're in when you were about to get on that plane with your mom, and you were fresh out of dropping out of college, what would you tell that person? Like, what would your advice be to them?
At that age specifically, try everything. If you're interested in something, try it, and don't like we were talking earlier, like most wholesalers have been kind of phased out. Like, don't give up so soon. Like, run with things, pivot, have confidence in yourself to make something happen, and take that first accomplishment in that new approach and run with that. Use that as your fuel. Like, if you hit a year-long dry spell after your first deal like I did, think back to that first deal and it's like, oh man, I've done this before. I can do it again. You might have to pivot, but I think...
Is that how you got out of that? Like, if you said you did your first deal and then it took you another year, is that how you...
Yeah.
You just went back to the drawing board and you said, okay, how did I get this deal?
Yeah, and at that point, I mean, my first deal I ever did was buying a rental property. So at that time, I was mowing the yards.
Yeah.
So every time I would go over there and mow the yard, I'd sit there and I'd stand in the front yard and be like, man, I own this freaking house. And I was 20 years old at the time, or 21 years old or something like that. So it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And what's an even better feeling is when you go through that adversity and then you come out on the other side. That was a big pivot for me too when I went into short sales and Curative, and I had to, all I'd ever done was direct to seller marketing, not even just as a wholesaler, but just for deal flow, whatever that deal flow was. And for me to cut out direct to seller marketing was one of the biggest pivots I ever had to make. And it stressed me the hell out.
Yeah, sure.
So like, that's my other piece of advice is like, don't be afraid to pivot and always be a student. The more you learn and the more you can just shut up and listen to people that are better at it than you, the more opportunity you have. And like, I never would have known what Curative stuff was if it wasn't for people that I turned to and asked for help. Or, you know, I go to McDonald's every morning to sit and have coffee with my mentors to talk about deals, go over stuff, ask how they dealt with stuff. So like, lean into people. There's like, I forget what the saying is, but like, you can either go somewhere fast alone or go far together, right? So
yeah, that's great, man. I appreciate you saying that, and that's something that I'm starting to see in the One Call Away community that I think is really cool. And it's what you touched on about, like, once you get through that and you have that new vantage point from going through those adversities, we're starting to see that in the One Call Away community, where there'll be like guys will come in and they'll build up their pipeline, and then they'll have a couple of really good months where they'll make like 30 to 50K in a month or 2 months, and they'll feel like they're off to the races. And then a lot of the time there'll be a dry spell after that. And they're they go from, man, I just made 30 or 50K in a month, and now I'm struggling to even put a deal on the board. And I've seen now 2-3 different guys go through that phase, and now they can turn around and be like, hey, I was there. This is kind of, you just have to keep your head down and keep going. And it's like, you see, once you go through that, you're able to turn around and help people get through it themselves. And that's the beautiful part about real estate and entrepreneurship and the communities that we're in and the different things that you do, is you're able to feed off of each other and support each other.
Yeah, dude, one of the people, I'll throw him under the bus, I don't care. One of the people in your community that have impressed me the most is Nate. Like, I remember we talked probably 2 years ago at this point, like when you and him, I think, like kind of first linked up. And we were just having a random conversation. I was sitting outside of a title company, and like, I was still wholesaling too, so we were kind of like talking to each other about our struggles. And he was like, man, I had a good few months, and then now I'm racking up all these, expenses, and I haven't had a deal close in a while. Now the kid's like your poster boy, bro. I mean, I saw your video yesterday of him locking up a live contract. I'm like, dude, this kid, like, one of the few people I've seen that, like, he was struggling and he just pushed through that wall, dude, and he's killing it.
He's setting the standard. I've told him that many times. I say, bro, keep setting the standard. You're killing it.
Well, and that's also what I like, and I'll stop rambling in a sec, but like, that's also why I like your community, because like, you set a good example with it and you teach them off that example. So like, you're bringing more wholesalers into the space that are doing it the right way. And like, people like Nate, people like Amon, like, they've, I've talked to them a bunch, like, great people, great businessmen, and they do things the right way. And like, it's cool to see them start to really excel with that.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. I'm very proud of them, for sure. All the guys there, we're building something special.
Hey, we're proud of you too, dude.
Well,
You're the one that built it all. So.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Well, dude, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. This was
an
awesome time. Yeah, sorry.